Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmid, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed.
Here.
Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderwoman Howard, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Williamson, 21 present.
A quorum being present, we will be led today in prayer by Reverend John Watson, Jr. of Maple Temple Church of God in Christ.
May we have a moment of silence for my comrade and friend, firefighter Jeff Hudson, and also Alderman Wessel's mother, Florence Wessel. Let us pray. Gracious God, Heavenly Father, we thank you for your eternal gift of your Son, Jesus. You are our refuge and our strength, and the strength of your people in every age, and our strength in this present hour in this chamber. We pause in your presence to offer you the devotion of our hearts again. Amid all the changes and distractions of this life, help us to rest our spirits upon those eternal foundations of truth and love which you have laid for us. Draw us unto yourself, that for this moment we may be still and know that you are God. With the assurance of your Holy Spirit, we may accept the responsibilities of this day and fulfill all our obligations with fidelity and honor. Into your loving arms we commit completely ourselves, our families, our communities, and our cities. Keep us steady, make us confident, and give us the courage to face each day with a firm trust in you. Amen.
Very good prayer. Alderman Wessels, my family's prayers go out to you and your family in this moment of sorrow. We will suspend with our regular order of business, take up our courtesy resolution calendar. I move for adoption of our courtesy resolution calendar, and take second by the Alderman from the 9th. Alderman from the 12th, would you like to approach the dais?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Today I want to read and introduce this resolution for a friend of mine, Joe Schicker. We tried to do this the week of Veterans Weekend and also the week of Pearl Harbor Weekend, but getting all the Schickers together is very tough to do, so we finally was all able to agree on today. What I'd like to do is read this resolution at this time. Whereas Sergeant First Class Joe Schicker of the Missouri National Guard was deployed in March in Jalalabad in Nangarhar Province on far eastern edge of Afghanistan bordering Pakistan. The mission was to teach agricultural skills as one of the 55 members of the Missouri National Guard's Agro-Business Development Team 6. And whereas Team 6 officially was listed as a non-combat unit, but in the mountains of Afghanistan, such listings are subject to instant change. On April 15th, a suicide bomber blew a hole through the wall of the team's operating compound, opening the way for a swarm of grenade-throwing Taliban terrorists who quickly killed an Afghan soldier and wounded several members of Team 6, including Sergeant First Class Schicker. And whereas the men of Team 6 fought off assaults on the west and south walls of the compound, holding their position until reinforcements arrived. For that action, the Army awarded 23 Guardsmen, including Sergeant First Class Schicker, the Combat Action Badge, and 15, again including Sergeant First Class Schicker, the Purple Heart. 2 Guardsmen were recommended for the Bronze Star with Valor. 3 were awarded the Combat Infantry Badge. 2 the Army Combat Medical Badge, and 5, including Sergeant First Class Schicker, the Combat Commendation Medal with Valor. And whereas Sergeant First Class Schicker's new medals will not be lonely dangling from his chest, he has twice been awarded the Bronze Star. Twice before he was awarded an Army Commendation Medal, and once before the Purple Heart. He began his Army career in 1978 and took his first combat tour in 2005, serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. And whereas the second visit to Afghanistan will be Sergeant First Class Schicker's last, he was knocked unconscious and nearly killed by the grenade that wounded him in the Jalalabad action and still carries shrapnel in his right leg from the explosion. As a 52-year-old grandfather, his combat career is over. His current assignment is Jefferson Barracks. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberations to recognize the accomplishments of Sergeant First Class Joseph Schicker and thank him for his service to the citizens, to the City of St. Louis, Missouri, and the United States. And we further direct the clerk of this board to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of these proceedings and to prepare a commemorative copy to the end that it may be presented to our honoree at a time and place deemed appropriate by the sponsor. Introduced on this actual 18th day of November 2012. And one other thing is everyone here with Mr. Schicker all served with Joe Schicker in National Guard and his family's here. So I just, you know, it's very personal to me being a veteran, and I think it's really nice that we recognize people from the city, you know, and all veterans. So thank you, I appreciate it very much. Okay, and you can do that adoption.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further comments? Any further comments? Alderman from the 11th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to move that the resolution be adopted in bank, if we could.
Moved by the Alderman from the 11th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, please make note of that change. Resolution number 172 be amended to be in bank.
So noted.
Anything further, Alderman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. Just to say that the The gentleman that is up there as we face the dais on the far right is the patriarch of all of this. Bill Schicker has been a lifelong friend and more importantly, raised a bunch of wonderful kids. The Schickers are known for their charitable bent, and I think as far as we as members of the St. Louis Board of Aldermen are concerned, the Schicker Automotive Group, which Mr. Schicker has got, I'm sure I don't know what his title is, it's the main man in the meat house as far as I'm concerned. But Bill and his siblings, we thank you very much for keeping that operation in the city of St. Louis. Most of your automotive colleagues have opted to flee, and we're very, very grateful that Schicker Automotive Group continues to call the city of St. Louis home. We are very grateful for that, and we're very grateful for your many contributions and your presence here this morning. And for you guys that defend us, you know, you're underappreciated, and you're certainly in all of our thoughts and prayers for what you did for us. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Any further comments? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? You know, I'd like to just also add, you know, my thanks to the Schicker family as a whole. You know, in St. Louis, we realize that you can choose to do your business anywhere. You can choose to be in the county, you can choose to be anywhere you want to be, and you choose to be in St. Louis, and we understand that. And today, since we do not ever have an opportunity to tell you or to recognize you for that, I want to just make sure that each and every one of you understand that we appreciate that, and we understand that you have options. So thank you for staying in the city. Thank you for all the work that you continue to do in the city. They say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And in this case, I am very happy the apple didn't fall too far from the tree, because the United States has benefited from that in the way of Sergeant First Class Joseph Schicker. Sergeant Schicker, this resolution is the highest honor this board has to give. And when we give this honor, what it does is that it cements in time some of your many contributions to the city of St. Louis, but in this case, to people all across the United States. We take a lot of our freedoms for granted, that we can go to the schools we want to, that we can move about throughout our community. But those things should not be taken for granted. It's because of the work of all of you, men and women up here today, that we have those freedoms. And you have, by the government's recommendation, and they have recognized that you have performed beyond the call of duty in that case. So I am indeed honored on behalf of the Board of Aldermen and citizens of the city of St. Louis, my family and friends. We cannot thank you enough for what you've done. And what this does is it cements in time some of your many contributions up until this point. So 100, 200 years from now, when people research the records of the city of St. Louis, they'll find your name buried amongst those records. And they know you've passed this way and you contributed so much that today we pause in our deliberations to recognize you. So congratulations for all you've done. Thank you.
Joe Schicker, this is actually a copy of the resolution that I want to give to you on behalf of the Board of Aldermen. And if you'd like to say a few words, that's fine too.
Thank you very much. I'm very humble. I'd rather put on the combat gear and carry a weapon than stand up and talk in front of people. We hit our highs and lows in life, and you know, each time I was at that low point, I had my family there looking out over me and taking care of me. St. Louis is a beautiful, wonderful place. Some time ago, my brother talked me into moving back into the city, and I still live here. And he said, we have a family business here, we need to support the community. The National Guard has been absolutely wonderful to me. It is the family organization that I've always looked for in the Army. The city of St. Louis is my home and will always be my home. Thank you very much. Thanks, Larry.
Joe.
Been moved and seconded that we adopt our courtesy resolution. Calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. With that, we'll return to our regular order of business. Introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Alderman from the 23rd.
Yes, I'd like to have as my honored guest Celeste Reeder from the Realtors, Al from the Firefighters, and Gary from the Painters.
Any further introductions? Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have from my honored guest today, Ronnie Auer, who's with us.
Alderman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I'd like to have as my honored guest, former State Representative Bruce Holt.
Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I'd like to have as my special guest, Mr. Leroy Grant of the Ameren UE of the AT&T and the Ameren, Missouri family, and Bishop Edwin Bass. Bishop Edwin Bass, thank you.
Alderman from 24th.
Thank you, Mr. President. My guest today is Rhonda Smythe from TrailNet.
Okay. Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 16th.
I would like to have as my special guest today from the plumbers and pipe fitters, Donald Summers and David Holmes, but I would also like to thank 16th Ward residents for coming down here, Mr. Joe Evola and John Schicker. So those are my guests as well. Thank you.
Alderman from 27th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I forgot to introduce two of my constituents, Keith Tubbs and Tion Cromwell, up in the gallery.
Alderman from 13th, you have a guest?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I'd like to introduce and recognize my special guest, my good friend, Jimmy Matthews.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 8th.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. Today I have with us from TrailNet, Rhonda Smythe.
Any further introductions? Alderman from the, any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th, like to wrap us up.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, you've caught me without a guest today as we are gathered here on December 14th. Today is National Monkey Day. So not only should you remember the monkeys, but share a banana with your favorite friend today. Thank you very much.
All right. Alderman from the 13th, recognized on approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve the minutes of November 30th.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in sections A, B, and C of the agenda and have been placed in all aldermen's mailboxes. I have from His Honor the Mayor the following correspondence. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for a reappointment to the Airport Arts Advisory Committee. The reappointment of Mary Lou Node, who resides at 6803 Kingsbury Boulevard, and whose term will expire on December the 10th, 2016. The reappointment of Laura Helling, who resides at 920 Devonshire Lane, and whose term will expire on December the 10th, 2016. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 18th.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board.
You're recognized on the mayor's appointment to the Airport Arts Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move for adoption of the mayor's recommendations to the Airport Arts Commission.
It's moved by the Alderman from the 18th. Let's entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the HIV Planning Council. The reappointment of Deshaun Brent, who resides at 4924 Finkman, and whose term will expire on September the 30th, 2014. The reappointment of Lawrence Mayhew, who resides at 4171 Oletha, and whose term will expire on September 30th, 2014. The reappointment of Stephanie Schmidt, who resides at 636 Cleveland, and whose term will expire on September the 30th, 2014. The reappointment of Michael Cutts, who resides at 826 Sycamore Street, and whose term will expire on September the 30th, 2014. The reappointment of Johnny Jones, who resides at 4451 Forest Park, and whose term will expire on September the 30th, 2014. The appointment of Jeffrey Morris, who resides at 525 Northwest Jefferson, and whose term will expire on September the 30th, 2014. The appointment of Abby Olson, who resides at 3117 Olive Street, and whose term will expire on September the 30th, 2014. The appointment of Deborah Ingram, who resides at 7114 Groveland, and whose term will expire on September the 30th, 2014. The appointment of Milton Butler, who resides at 1424 Amherst, and whose term will expire on September the 30th, 2014. And the reappointment of John Brewer, who resides at 3436 Chippewa, and whose term will expire on September the 30th, 2014. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 8th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the HIV Planning Council.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year to everyone here. At this time, I would move to adopt the appointments to the HIV Planning Council.
Moved by the Alderman from the 8th, seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
That's the extent of report of city officials.
We dispense with line items 7 and 8. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? Alderman from the 13th, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for third reading and final passage of Board Bill 1094, substitute.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th and seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Alderman from the 13th, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board Bill 1094, substitute, amends the firefighter pension bill that we passed this past summer. All the changes contained in this board bill are either favorable or neutral to the firefighters. There are three components to it. One is the lifting of the COLA cap for 100% disabled firefighters. Another is the establishment of a dual plan, freezing the current plan and establishing a new plan, pension plan. And the third is the restoration of all benefits to vested firefighters. The reasons I outlined the reasons why we should make these changes a couple of weeks ago, but to go over them briefly, the COLA cap is something I think a consensus of us thought should be lifted in the summer. We needed to get an actuarial study and introduce a bill, which we did in September. That's the first component of the bill. The other two are restoration of the firefighters, the vested firefighters' pension rights, as well as establishing a dual plan, or something that Judge Durker indicated would be preferable in a preliminary order that was issued about 8 weeks ago. In that order, he affirmed the city's right to establish a new plan. He affirmed about 80% of what we did in Board Bill 12, but he had a couple issues. Again, one was the vesting of firefighters' benefits, and the other, he did not feel it appropriate to merge the new plan with the existing plan. Thus, this sets up a dual plan system. Dual plan systems are not uncommon in pension plans. This is not something that would be breaking any new ground. And what would be the cost of this? The cost would be of the changes included in this plan are about $500,000. It would decrease our savings, our first-year savings, from 3.4 to 2.9 million, and it would make these changes would not only make the bill, let's say, more preferable to Judge Durker's court, but also the appeal process as it pursues through legal channels. So I would urge that you vote in favor of this board bill.
Any further discussion on Board Bill 109, floor substitute? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we third read and finally pass Board Bill number 109, floor substitute. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Troop. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. I didn't hear you. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmid. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
No.
Alderman Bosley. Thank you. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderwoman Howard. Alderman Boyd.
What?
19.
Oh, Alderman from the 4th, you recognize me? Yeah. Please make note of that change. Alderman from the 4th is no.
17 aye votes. 8 no votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from the 13th and third read and final pass. Board Bill 109, floor substitute. We'll dispense with line items 10. First reading of board bills.
Board Bill 260, sponsored by Alderwoman Flowers, and ordinance directing the Director of Streets to temporarily close, barricade, or otherwise impede the flow of traffic at North Crest Lane at the south curb line of Goodfellow Boulevard and containing an emergency clause.
Reference to committee.
To the Streets Committee, Board Bill 260, that's the extent of reference to committees.
Second reading.
Following board bills were reported out of the Housing Committee. Board Bill 235, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from C, multiple family dwelling district, to the F, neighborhood commercial district in City Block 4837 for property on end right and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 236, sponsored by Alderwoman Florida, and ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from B, two family dwelling district and H, area commercial district, to the H, area commercial district only for properties on Utah and McLean, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 251, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance designating a portion of the city as a redevelopment area known as the Northeast Hampton Birth Hole Redevelopment Area, establishing the Northeast Hampton Birth Hole Special Allocation Fund, authorizing certain actions by the city officials, and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 252, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance affirming adoption of a redevelopment plan, redevelopment area, redevelopment project, authorizing the execution of a redevelopment agreement between the city and TriStar Imports Incorporated, designating TriStar Imports Incorporated as developer of the redevelopment area and containing a severability clause. The following board bills were reported out of the Parks Committee. Board Bill 97, sponsored by Alderman Williamson, an ordinance enacting a curfew for Marie Fowler Park and Philip J. Lucier Park, containing an exception for persons holding permits and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 258, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, and an ordinance relating to parks, subject to the approval of voters, an additional 3/16 of 1 cent sales tax on all retail sales made in the city, containing an interpretation clause, a severability clause, and an emergency clause. The following bills were reported out of the Streets Committee. Board Bill 233, sponsored by Alderwoman Flowers, an ordinance establishing a four-way stop site at the intersection of Logan Street and Lowell Street by regulating all eastbound and westbound traffic traveling on Logan Street at Lowell Street, and regulating all northbound and southbound traffic traveling on Lowell Street at Logan Street, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 247, sponsored by Alderman Ortman, an ordinance establishing a four-way stop site at the intersection of McNair and Victor by regulating all north-south traffic traveling on McNair approaching such intersection and containing an emergency clause. Following board bills were reported out of Transportation and Commerce Committee. Board Bill 195, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller to enter into and execute the First Amendment to the East Terminal Agency Agreement, to the Lambert Airport East Terminal Agency Agreement AL 44-6 between the city and airport terminal services, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 196, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller to enter into and execute a service agreement for solid waste disposal and recycling services at Lambert Airport with a 5-year term between the city and Allied Services LLC, containing a severability clause. Board Bill 197, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission and the Board of Public Service and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, establishing and authorizing a public works improvement program at Lambert Airport and at an estimated cost of $4,250,000, authorizing an initial appropriation in the total amount of $4,250,000 from the Airport Development Fund and containing a severability and an emergency clause. Board Bill 257, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, and the ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Board of Public Service, and the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Comptroller and the City Councilor and the Director of Airports to enter into and execute and deliver a settlement agreement between the city and the owner and operator of Lambert Airport and American Airlines, providing for a comprehensive resolution of all matters and controversies which are a part of Americans Chapter 11 reorganization case and proceeding, and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 259, sponsored by Alderwoman Flowers, and ordinance recommended by the Port Authority Commission of the City, repealing Ordinance 68909, which is authorizing an option to lease agreement and a lease agreement between the city and Grace Hill Settlement House, and enacting a new ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller to enter into a lease agreement between the city and Great Rivers Greenway District for certain land on the unapproved wash. That's the extent of our second reading.
We dispense with line item 14, perfection consent. Move, at the request of the sponsor, could you move Board Bill number 13 to the informal calendar, to the perfection informal calendar?
So noted.
Perfection consent.
Board Bill 256, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro, and an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing a supplemental appropriation amending Ordinance 69154, commonly referred to as the City Annual Operating Plan for fiscal year 2012 through 2013, appropriating $40,000 from excess payments on water bills and personal and real property tax bills received into the Heat Up St. Louis Fund, Big Brothers Big Sisters, the Backstoppers, and Pet Spay and Neuter Microchip Assistance Fund, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 249, committee substitute, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, and an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to vacate travel on a 25-foot wide north-south alley in City Block 1740, bounded by Salisbury, North Florissant, Malincrot, and 22nd, from Destrehan from 23rd to 22nd Street, from Destrehan from North Florissant west to the alley in City Block 1741, Destrehan from 22nd Street east to the alley in City Block 1741, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 250, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, and an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to vacate public surface rights for travel on Malincrot from 25th Street eastwardly to a point, the southern north-south alley in City Block 1748, bounded by Salisbury, 23rd Street, Malincrot, and 25th Street, containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of perfection consent.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the motion for the perfection consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for perfection of the aforementioned bills on the consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 12th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We'll dispense with line item 16, third reading consent calendar. You gotta, so we have you want to suspend?
Mr. President, I move to.
Recognize Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Please proceed, Alderman.
I move to suspend the rules to place Board Bill number 249, committee substitute number 250 on the third reading consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th. I entertain a second on the motion. Second by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Troop, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmid, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Conway. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Cone. 25 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion. Alderman from the 4th and suspended the rules for the purposes of moving the aforementioned bills to the third reading consent calendar. Dispense with line item 16, third reading consent.
Board Bills 222, 223, 224, 225, 159, 237, 199, 230, 243, 244, 214, 215, 229, 242, 232, 237, 232, I'm sorry, 207, 208, 228, 179 committee substitute, 238, 234, 155, 240, 209, 210, 249 committee substitute, and 250.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for third reading and final passage of the aforementioned bills on the consent
Moved by the
calendar.
Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 12th. Any discussion? It's been a request for previous roll. Hearing no objection, motion carries. Third reading report of engrossments.
Board Bill 231, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 920 South Taylor and 4450 West Pappan, containing a severability clause.
Alderman from the 17th, you recognize on the third reading.
Yes, Mr. President, I move to put this on. I would request that this gets put on the informal calendar.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Change place Board Bill number 231 on the third reading informal calendar.
So noted. That's the extent of third reading report of engrossment.
Voice is showing. Report of Enrollment Committee.
Board Bills 222, 223, 224, 225, 159, 237, 199, 230, 243, 244, 214, 215, 231. Let's take that off. Take off 231, remove 231, 229, 242, 232, 207, 208, 228, 179 committee substitute, 238, 234, 155, 240, 209, 210, 109 floor substitute, 249 committee substitute, and 250.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. First reading of resolutions.
Resolution 194, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen. The Board of Aldermen approves the 2013 East Loop Parkview Gardens Special Business District budget.
Alderman from the 28th, you recognize on the first reading of resolution number 194.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move for unanimous consent.
Hearing no objection, Alderwoman, please proceed.
I move to adopt the 2013 East Loop Parkview Gardens Special Business District.
Resolution number 194. It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 28th. I entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 17th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 195, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen. The Board of Aldermen approves the 2013 Central West and North Special Business District budget.
Alderman from the 28th, you recognize on the first reading of resolution number 195.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent, please.
Hearing no objection, Alderwoman, please proceed.
And I would move that we pass the 2013 Central West and North Special Business District budget.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 28th that we pass resolution number 195. I entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 17th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 196, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen. The Board of Aldermen approves the 2013 Westminster Lake Special Business District budget.
Alderman from the 28th, you recognize on the first reading of resolution number 196.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent.
Hearing no objection, Alderwoman, please proceed.
I move for the adoption of the 2013 Westminster Lake Special Business District budget.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 28th. Entertain a second on that motion. Oh, there we go. Heard a couple that time. Seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 197, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen. The Board of Aldermen approves the budget for the Cathedral Square Special Business District for 2013.
Alderman from 28th, you recognize on the first reading of resolution number 197.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent.
Hearing no objection, Alderwoman, please proceed.
Move for the adoption of the Cathedral Square Special Business District 2013 budget.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 28th that we adopt resolution number 197. Seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 198, sponsored by Alderwoman Cruzen. The Board of Aldermen approves the 2013 Washington Place Special Business District budget.
Alderman from the 28th, you recognize on the first reading of resolution number 198.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent.
It's been moved by the, well, please proceed, Alderwoman. I'm going too fast.
I move for the adoption of the 2013 Washington Place Special Business District budget.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 28th, seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Resolution 200, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey. The Board of Aldermen directs the Parks and Environmental Matters Committee of this board to convene hearings for the purpose of examining the structure and organization of the Missouri History Museum.
Alderman from the 17th, you recognize on first reading of resolution number 200.
Yes, Mr. President, I seek unanimous consent.
Hearing no objection, Alderman, please proceed.
Yes, Mr. President, we had a request. We looked into some of these issues 2 years ago. We had a request to take a look into them again recently, and therefore I'd like to go ahead and pass this today, so I move for passing Resolution 200.
Moved by the Alderman from the 17th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of first reading of resolutions.
Second reading.
Following resolution was reported out of the Housing Committee, Resolution 190, Committee Substitute, sponsored by Alderwoman Young. The Board of Aldermen approves the Uniform Sign Standards for the South Downtown Redevelopment Area Signage Plan Overlay District.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the second reading of resolution number 190, Committee Substitute.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for final passage of Resolution 190, Committee Sub.
Moved by the Alderman from the 7th. I'll entertain a second on that motion. Second. Seconded by the Alderman from the 16th. Alderman from the 7th, please proceed.
This was heard in the housing meeting the other morning, and basically it's establishing sign guidelines for Ballpark Village, and with that I renew my motion.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution number 190, committee substitute. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Following resolution was reported out of the Public Safety Committee, Resolution 185, Committee Substitute, sponsored by Alderman Schmid. The Board of Aldermen, pursuant to Ordinance 67794, the Board of Public Safety Committee does hereby approve and recommend for appropriation the Crime Prevention Program funds for fiscal year 2012.
Alderman from the 20th, recognized on the second reading of resolution number 185, committee substitute.
Mr. President, members of the board, I ask for unanimous consent.
You know that's not a requirement.
I understand.
It's been a request by the Alderman from the 20th. Hearing no objection, Alderman, please proceed.
I'm moving for adoption of resolution number 185 in a second as a committee substitute, but let me give some background first. Mr. President, it's my responsibility as chair of the Public Safety Committee to report out the resolution approved by the Public Safety Committee for allocation of Proposition S funds allocated by the voters for crime prevention programs pursuant to Ordinance 67794. Historically, those funds have been allocated through a rigorous process that involves a request for proposals, a review by the United Way, a selection committee that makes recommendations for funding to the Public Safety Committee, approval of a resolution with funding allocations, and a reporting out of that resolution to the full Board of Aldermen. We have followed those time-honored practices. The RFP for Program for Youth at Risk, designed to prevent involvement in crime, was issued. Notices were posted in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the St. Louis American, our website here in the city, and the City Journal. All aldermen received copies, and the information was shared. I know that all of you, and we thank you very much for sharing those with people who submitted, some of whom submitted proposals. A couple of days prior to the tragic and untimely death in a horrific crash in a UPS truck of Alderman Greg Carter, he sent out a copy of an RFP. And as a result of these unusual and awful circumstances, however, the RFP was never actually issued at that time, even though we thought it had been issued. Following Alderman Greg Carter's death, pursuant to our rules, I became the chair of the Public Safety Committee, but that was during our summer break, and so I asked that we not announce that decision on that new role given the terrible circumstances. When we discovered that the RFP had not in fact been issued, shortly after we came back into session, the Public Safety Committee met and we decided to amend that RFP slightly and to reissue it. It was reissued on October 3rd. Normally proposals are due within 30 days, but we decided to have that not due on the same week as our national election, and also to give people additional time to send in their proposals. We received 40 of those proposals, which I understand is the same number that we received last year, and a few of those proposals were late, and so the selection committee had to look at that. And I do want to definitely thank and recognize the selection committee, first of all, and particularly thank a few individuals who went above and beyond the call of duty on that process. The selection committee consisted of Alice Prince, who's a representative from the St. Louis Association of Training and Employment, Maurice Falls from the President's office, President Reed's office, Alicia Stellhorn, a representative from Recreation, Elaine Spearman, representative from the Comptroller's office, Alderwoman Carol Howard as an at-large member of the Public Safety Committee, Eddie Roth, on the Public Safety Director, and Alderman Terry Kennedy as the Vice President of the Public Safety Committee, and myself. Maurice, Alice, Alicia, and I met this past Tuesday to define our recommendations for the Public Safety Committee. We had the benefit of the evaluation from Elaine Spearman and from Carol Howard, as well as some advice from Eddie Roth. We sent the proposals to the United Way, as I said, and as in the past, we received these proposals evaluations on fiscal and operational capacity. That information was shared with the Selection Committee and with the Public Safety Committee. The Public Safety Committee accepted the recommendations of the Selection Committee for the most part. It made one change by eliminating the program submitted by St. Louis Public Schools and substituting in lieu thereof one by Covenant House. Exhibit A, which is a committee substitute, is attached and it is on everyone's desk together with the resolution. It shows all 15 awardees, and many of them have not received the amount requested, so award letters that are going out will request that they modify their budget accordingly and show the revised budget, scope of work, and deliverables, including the number of youth served in each project. Again, I appreciate everyone's help for allowing us and helping us to deploy this money, which the taxpayers thought appropriate. In this case, it totals $609,999, and it's going out to the community for at-risk youth 11 to 18 years old in our communities. And of course, the next step is for it to go to ENA we hope, on January 16th, and then for contracts to be issued thereafter. I renew my motion.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 20th. I entertain a second on the motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 9th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of second reading of resolutions.
All right, just as a point of clarification, resolution number 185, committee substitute, I want to commend the Alderman from the 20th for bringing it out to the full board and actually pushing it to a vote before the full board, because that is not a requirement. As the chairman, he has an option just to take the committee's recommendations and then just do a report out to the full board of aldermen. But in this case, he decided to have the full board of aldermen vote on it, so I commend you for that, Alderman. Miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
No meetings next week. Today, the Board of Aldermen Christmas holiday party is at 5:30? From 5 to 7. That's the extent of my announcements.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. The first thing I think is in order is to take a moment of silence for Jerry Brown. Jerry Brown was a student at Vashon High School, and as you know, the unfortunate accident that took his life as he was living a very good and I think very honorable life as an NFL football player. He never forgot the community that he came from, and I'd like to ask us to just do a few seconds of silence in the honor and respect for his family in this time of sorrow.
Would everyone please rise, who's able to rise, and join me and all the women from the 19th for a moment of silence for Jerry Brown.
Thank you very much. My other announcements, very quickly. I'd like to congratulate the Locust Business District for their 30 years anniversary. And I'd also like to say thank you to Katie Kaplan, who was the executive director there for a number of years and brought them to another level of service to this community. And she will be moving on to do other things, but still helping the city of St. Louis. Also, I'd like to remind residents, most especially of the 19th Ward, but anyone is welcome to come on Sunday afternoon at 4:30 to Chambers Park. We will have what we call Winter Wonderland. It's just having a little fun for a moment, you know, closing out the year, people saying prayerfully good things to each other, and we will end that activity with fireworks, and hopefully everyone will take a new step into the new year and improve with that. Lastly, I want to suggest to any who have not had an opportunity to go and look at the photo exhibit in the lobby. This was an entry to the Walgreens Expression Challenge by the Katie Ann Foundation that works with our at-risk youth in the city of St. Louis. And I tell you, when you look at this, you would believe that it was professionally done by trained models. But these young people chose their own theme, They did this themselves. All we provided was a photographer. But they are wonderful young people who are growing, learning more about themselves, improving their character and their ability to be good citizens. So I'd like for you to go out and take a look at it and prayerfully give more support as we move forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further announcements? Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I'd like to say that tomorrow at 9 o'clock, I will be playing Santa Claus or Samuel Claus, the Breakfast with Santa for the children in my community. And I want to thank all the donors, all those that contributed. We thank you very much for helping us out with this is our 5th annual Breakfast with Santa. So if you'd like to come by and sit on Santa's knee, you're more than welcome. Especially you, Larry. Thank you.
Larry, you need to ask who Santa is. Any further announcements? Any further? Alderman from the 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to actually introduce my wife's uncle, Donald Graham, who lives in the city of St. Louis in the 7th Ward. He was late in arriving, but I want to introduce him and acknowledge him that he at least came down.
Any further announcements? Alderman from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President, fellow board members. I also would like to make an announcement that this evening, the Minority Contractors Initiative, MCI, is having their holiday happy hour at Club EXO, which is over on Locust Street. It starts at 5:30. So hope you can join us this evening there. Also, a good friend of ours, of many of ours, at least here at the board, Sal Martinez, will be celebrating his birthday there this evening. So hope you all can join us for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 13th, recognized on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to excuse the alderman from the 3rd, 14th, and 22nd wards due to necessary absence.
Moved by the alderman from the 13th, seconded by the alderman from the 12th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I move to adjourn the meeting until Friday, 10 a.m., January 11th.
Moved by the alderman from the 13th, and entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the alderman from the 18th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Stand adjourned.